Hi, it's Kay. Unfortunately, we are going to have to push our book club meeting back a week. Again, joys of doing things live. Of course, things can get in the way. Unfortunately, last time that happened, it was because I and one of the other members both had COVID. This time it's because, and you might hear my voice, sorry. I've had a really bad sinus infection, probably from pushing too quickly without fully recovering from COVID. Whoops. Um, so I am making this video because when it's not live, I can edit out all of the hacking and coughing that will inevitably end up taking place, and I can do it in less than an hour of talking. You also see me in a different location than usual because I did not have the energy right now, honestly, to even try to sit up on the stool that I usually sit on in my workshop. I really need to get one with a back. It's on my to-get list. Since we're not able to do our regular meeting today, I wanted to read you all a story. It's just a flash fiction that I wrote close to a decade ago, and I know that because my almost 10-year-old was not yet one at the time. And it's one of the few, how do I say this? One of the few non-fan fiction stories I've ever written that just kind of flowed out of me with very little having to stop and think about how it was going to go. It's one of the few non-fan fiction stories I've ever written that actually flowed out of me without me having to just really stop and think about how it was going to go. And in light of the stories that we were reading for this week, which will be, honestly, I can't say yet for sure whether it'll be next week or the week after that we meet again, partly because I'm waiting to hear from some club members on what works better for them, and partly because I'm on my second week of this insane sinus infection and my second antibiotic for it. The first one pretty much didn't touch it, so we kind of have to see if it improves better with the second one. But because of the types of stories, and one of them in particular was, without spoilers, maybe a little bit closer to this style. My personal writing style does not typically lend itself very much toward Mr. Lovecraft's style. They're very, very different. I enjoy reading his weird stories, but they're not the kind that I usually write. This one just kind of popped out of me one day, and that was weird in and of itself. So here we go with Dead Bodies and Top Hats by Caroline Sloma. Deceased. What a weird word. Deceased. Deceased. It made no sense. When someone died, they ceased. D was a prefix that made something, what was the word? Anti-something, the opposite of what it was. Seeing dead bodies always made Emmeline pensive, but it also made thinking hard. Bizarre combination. The body before her was grotesque in its form of perfection. The top hat killer always left victims perfectly posed and always wearing a top hat. They died in various ways. Poison was the choice method, but how it was administered changed constantly. She needed to be able to think clearly. She couldn't do that here, not in the presence of a dead man. A ceased man. Another victim of a serial killer that the papers have been writing about for months now. Somehow, in the mental fog always created when she viewed a dead body, her brain latched onto the word cereal, changed its spelling, and told her she was hungry. Maybe she went home for breakfast. She could sort things out better there. She had enough photographs, now anyway, for further study. She could run through it while she ate. Amazing how hardened one could become to such things while still being unable to think around the bodies themselves and try to make sense of this. She pondered it over her bowl of life. The thing throwing everyone off was the inconsistency. It's what confused the journalists. It's what confused and terrified the general public. And it's what confused her. They were all men, but there had to be a better reason than just their gender. She looked through the photos one by one. Victim number 1, Hispanic, 5 feet 3 inches, 50 years old, orange picker. Victim number 2, white, 6 feet even, 23, recent college graduate. Victim number 3, black, 5 feet 10 inches, 42, lawyer. Victim number 4, mixed white and Asian, 5 feet 6 inches, 31, stockbroker. And now this last one, victim number 5, white, 5 feet 9 inches, 70 years old, retired teacher. As she looked from picture to picture, she wondered why. Why these 5? Why did they need to die? Why did they need to be left in pristine condition, perfectly posed, wearing whatever they had happened to have on, with the simple addition of a top hat? She glanced down into her empty bowl and remembered that that had been the last of both the cereal and the milk. With a sigh, she put her file away, rinsed her bowl in the sink, and headed out to the store. After such a long night, she really should be headed to bed, but she felt that she was on the verge of making a little more sense of this. She couldn't turn her brain off now. "Morning, Mr. Gregor." She tossed her greeting lightly to the doorman as she passed, as though her night had been spent getting rested and refreshed in bed, rather than dealing with dead bodies and top hats. "Good morning, Miss Emmeline," he said in his characteristically stately way. Mr. Gregor had a way of addressing everyone from the woman in the penthouse to the homeless man who slept in their alley, as though all were royalty, and he but their humble servant. She turned left from the door. As she passed the alley, she glanced briefly at the homeless man. She always noticed him, but today something stood out to her about him. She wasn't sure why, but his image lingered in her brain longer than usual, as though there was something significant. Oh well, she'll tackle that problem later. Right now she needed to make a mental list of necessary groceries. She never wrote her grocery list down, but always had one in mind when she arrived at the store, and never deviated from it. It was on her way out of the store that it hit her. While the bagger was helping her balance her paper bags, she always used paper, for her block's walk home, she suddenly realized what the connection was. Every man had been broad. Not fat, not muscular, just broad. Stocky was a word that came to mind that had too many different meanings. No, they had been broad, like pit bulls or something. She didn't know how to describe it. She just knew it was the one thing besides gender that they all had in common. Well, that was one more piece of the puzzle, one step closer. It still didn't answer why. Why did broad men have to die and be posed to perfection with a top hat on? On the return trip past the alley by her apartment building, she took another glance at the homeless man. He wasn't always there during the day, but today he had slept late. Hadn't he? A glance up at the City Hall clock, visible above the buildings across the street, showed that, in fact, her night's adventures had led to an earlier than usual breakfast, which was followed by an earlier than usual trip to the store. It was 8:30. Not so late after all. Though her pace barely slackened as she passed, time seemed to slow around her. She started noticing things about him that she had never noticed before. His even breathing beneath the newspapers, his stubby fingers poking out of the gloves, and she noticed that he was broad. Not fat, but broad. And she knew. She didn't know how. She never knew how, but all at once she knew. He had to be the next victim. It would be a few weeks, of course. She always took a few weeks of planning. Sometimes longer, but for him, a few weeks should suffice. But it had to be. He had to die. "Hello again, Mr. Gregor," she said lightly as she passed through the door. "Good morning, Miss Emmeline," he said in his stately way. With well-honed skill, she used her elbow to hit the elevator button while keeping her bags balanced in her arms. Her brain was riveted on the mental image of the homeless man. So much to do. She thought he might look nice with a white hat. Didn't she have one with a plaid band somewhere? How nicely that would accent the patches on his jacket. She hadn't seen them today past the newspapers, but she had noticed them before. And maybe, after this one, she would understand why. So, that is Dead Bodies and Top Hats. I hope to be able to tell you soon when our next book craft session is going to be, so keep an eye on Pixie Elegance Media, social media on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. I think I update most often on Facebook, although I have a tendency to bounce around because ADHD brain, and it's wherever my brain decides it needs to be that day. Sorry. But in the meantime, you can just let me know if there's anything you need or anything you're wondering about. You have now 3 more weeks to get caught up on the next 3 Lovecraft stories in our book, which will be down in the description if you didn't get a chance to read them yet. And hopefully all of this nasty grossness of my head will go away and we'll be able to have a nice functional session sometime soon. Have a great week, everybody.